Sitting at my desk at work. Congratulations, we're offering you a staff writer position on The Amanda Show. This was like a dream come true.
I had been in LA for 7 years. Someone was going to pay me to write comedy. And she said that I was going to have to split a salary with a writer that I did not know.
And have them share a salary. And I never saw it happen to any of the men. It was my dream job. Down. I thought to myself, don't be a complainer.
Paramount Law, which was very exciting.
My first week on the job, I got to meet my writing partner. Chrissy's very easy to get along with.
Were great. They were great. Said he didn't think women were funny.
Female writer. And he said this to the writers in the writer's room. Didn't really value women in the writer's room. Stands the girls. Are the girls in the room? Where are the girls? Stand girls that are uptight about things like that. Next time this guy asks me if I mind something, there's a right and wrong answer. And thank God I answered right.
He was there anytime we were doing any work. And joke around and being dirty was part of the silliness.
Flippy Taint is a character that Dan created. The taint is the part of the body that's between the penis and the anus is hell. What this word really means.
And saying like, oh, does this mean I remember someone from Nickelodeon sitting with us and saying, was like, no, why would you think that's like tainted, like you've tainted something? And they were like, okay, man, that is power. It's done.
One of those things where it's like, oh, like, oh.
Scene, she's praying a sexualized genitalia joke with a little girl who's portraying a little girl too. It was clear that there was a permissibility around these sexualized jokes with children.
I'm going to be reviewing the docuseries Quiet on Set, which looks into controversial and sometimes illegal events that happened on the sets of popular youth television for millennials. The main tidbit I'll be focusing on in this video is the clip I just showed. But really, I'll be looking into Dan Schneider's birth chart for a bit of fun. I've been studying astrology since I was 7 after coming across the family heirloom of an old book on astrology, and it all just makes so much sense to me, to the point where I can correctly guess deeper factors of people's horoscopes accurately once I get a random vibe from them, even if I haven't met them physically or at all. So let's see some reasons written in the stars why Dan is like this. It says his sun is in Capricorn, his rising sign is in Aries, and his moon is in Capricorn, and his midheaven is in Capricorn, based off a birth time provided by investigations, documented in news reports, and calculated by professional astrologists. I can calculate rising signs and midheavens, and any Capricorn, in general, born from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. is Aries rising. What I want to focus on are the deeper basics. The simple basics is just his sun sign. A deeper basic is his moon sign, ascendant, and midheaven. They give immediate deeper insight into someone behind the general personality of their sun sign. Simpler complexities of a birth chart lies in the rest of the astrological wheel and the house placements. Deeper complexities lies in the rest of the birth chart aspects. I think since Dan's workplace persona is coming into question, it's only necessary to look at his deeper basics. The answer most likely lies right there. If you wanted to understand deeper parts of his personality, look into his simple complexities. If you want to understand his psychology, look into his deeper complexities. We'll start with his ascendant sign, the fun part, because it should reveal the general reasons why he acts how he does and why he's now in trouble. A good-looking woman reclining on a sofa wears a negligee which seems ready to drop from her shoulder. This is not describing the person, this is a metaphor or a symbol. Sometimes, it can be literal. Obviously in this case, it's not literal. He's neither good-looking, nor a woman. But he carries himself in this way, as if he is good-looking. The negligee is alluring or seductive lingerie. Reclining on a sofa means laying back. If his ascendant is saying he is symbolized as someone good-looking seductively laying back on their couch, with metaphorical lingerie about to drop from their shoulder, this means Dan mixes business with pleasure. Since he is not good-looking, it makes it more disturbing to be charmed and flirted with or seduced by someone obese and a man and older. It might sound hypocritical that if someone attractive were mixing business with pleasure it'd be less disturbing. It could perhaps seem more flattering, for a little while. That's just how it is. Some people don't care how good-looking you are. A further breakdown is gentle, pleasant, and hospitable character. One is devoted to nice deeds and charity work, but one has no willpower. One is so selfless that one may get involved in a romance just out of one's inability to say no. Therefore, there is a danger to get lost in one's desire to please others. This degree indicates that happiness comes from concealed love affairs and changes, rather than from marriage. It's clearly saying he has concealed love affairs, which is the topic of his controversies, that he philanders people in the workplace, some underage. That's the subject of his downfall, not my opinion, and I don't state he is guilty of these controversies. But his horoscope begins to allude to this. It also uses one a lot. It doesn't state that the person in this chart feels this way. It says one. That can mean, due to this aspect in Dan's chart, that someone else might feel this way. It could also mean there might have been a point where perhaps Dan had to say no to someone and didn't, and found himself in a situation. It could also mean he might have to tell himself no, not necessarily someone else. But he doesn't say no. If in the natal chart, Mercury is dominant, the intellect may prevail over sensuality and may prompt to establish some sort of literary or artistic circle which offers a nice opportunity to both genders to get together and flirt. His Mercury is close to his midheaven, and the midheaven further describes the career and workplace attitude. And his workplace was literally him establishing literary and artistic circles, and I'm sure it provided a social atmosphere and that there was innocent or devious flirtation on his sets. That's kind of the whole point of everything he's in trouble for, so to speak. I'm satisfied already with what I've found, but that's just the ascendant, the mask and reputation to onlookers. Let's head over to the midheaven, which is a deeper aspect of what comes with, or hides behind, this mask. In a dimly lit room, two men and a woman gathered around a table examine statuettes pierced with needles. Ambitious, possessive, and spiteful character. Life is plagued by all sorts of rivalries, from school to university, and later, in the workplace. Hatred and revenge are the powerful goads which prompt to resort to extreme and reprehensible means to get what one covets, be it a love partner or a prestigious position. One would be well advised to display more moderation and to pay more respect to other people's interests because evil deeds only bring about misfortune and loneliness. So, in a dimly lit room just means, clandestine, secret, complicit, behind the scenes. Two men and a woman are on a table examining a weird item basically. In this woman's case, one of the female writers was outnumbered in a room, according to her, with Dan and someone else from the network. If it were a woman, she would have said. So she says, they discussed the word taint which was described to be an inappropriate part of the anatomy. And Dan literally told her what it meant beforehand, which is when she should have walked off this set as any woman I think would have left a job if someone said something perverted to her and no one stepped in. But she knows what it means, and this person asks her in this sort of indifferent, cavalier way, does this word mean something dirty? She lies on Dan's behalf when it was her moment to speak up, and Dan dismisses it. This woman says it was power. But that's a cop-out to make it seem like she was so afraid of Dan. You're afraid of someone who gives you everything, not someone who, as she said, drastically reduced her salary before she even started, and not to mention the other things that she'll bring up later that he did. You don't intransigently devote yourself to half a paycheck. But she did. She thinks that other guy wasn't in on it, but he was, because he knew to bring it up. They were testing her. And she failed the test. Technically, she passed, by giving them what they wanted and staying in a job that sexualized Amanda Bynes, a child who she said was 13. But she failed every other test and she'll have to take that with her to the grave. She can blame it all on Dan if she wants. But she is this woman in this astrological description of people sitting around a table discussing weird, grim things in secret, in a dimly lit room. Furthermore, back to Dan's chart, it says spiteful person, with a life full of rivalries, particularly the workplace. Well, he definitely had less than wholesome, peaceful relationships in the workplace. And that, hatred and revenge, fuels someone to go to the extremes to gain a partner or prestigious position. So this could be hatred of the self, this could be hatred of someone else, this could be someone else's hatred against him. But either way, the workplace is full of this hatred and extreme measures to gain success or relationships. So, long story short, in a nutshell, Dan did extreme things to become a head writer, an executive producer, and his lack of boundaries are quite extreme in the workplace. Evil deeds bring about misfortune and loneliness. I don't know if he's lonely, but the world is out for his 3 necks. And as far as misfortune, he probably can't show his face or be publicly credited in any workplace ever again, I'd assume, even if he has a severance pay of $7 million. Now, $7 million is pennies, if you owe in lawsuits, settlements, or hush money, or general lack of financial health and bills, etc. Poor people spend more than $50,000 a year, since $50,000 in income is seen as lower middle class, and these people say they live check to check a lot, and most likely have bad credit scores and/or debt. So this must mean they spend more than they make, or almost as much as they make, or just as much as they make. And so if the average person spends $50,000, then a rich person probably spends $1 million a year or more. Just on themselves, let alone if they need to pay people or institutions off. So Dan's money will run out pretty soon, off that severance at least. Let's look at his East Point, which intersects an important part of the universe, impacting the energy you were born within based on the time of the birth and the birthplace and your connection to this astronomical aspect. It details the ascendant, basically. It adds character and depth to the attitude and actions of the ascendant. His says something off the bat this is too funny, because it's very accurate based on footage I'm sure we all seen of Dan, taunting people around set, as well as doing things I'll comment on further down the line in another video. It says here. A man with a dagger in his hand tries to provoke a group of men who are quietly playing bowls. He is seething with rage because the players pay no attention to him. I'm not sure if he acts with rage, because everyone is seen submitting to his annoying and boundary-crossing attention-seeking. When you mix this in with the fact that he's apparently full of hatred and spite partly because his background and upbringing are full of rivalries, and when you mix this with him creating a workplace of flirtation, it seems he annoyed people disregarding that it intimidated them, or that it crossed intimate boundaries, or that there were covert intentions behind what seems to be harmless pranks and humors and teasing. That's literally what his chart says. And we are still just looking at the basics of his chart. Hot-tempered, quarrelsome and reckless character. One always wants to create conflicts, antagonize everyone, criticize other people's opinions, and stir trouble. One is heading for serious problems because of one's own animosity. A career requiring aggressiveness is an excellent outlet for these violent impulses and brings about success and fame. A keyword here is animosity. I am, again, not sure he's a violent or hot-tempered person. I have only watched 10 minutes so far of the series, but I got a strong instinct to check his birth chart with high hopes to find gems like this. For now, I can say, based on people's public, decades-long claims about him, that if he does not get his way, they would lose their positions. This is what they say in the documentary. This still however doesn't explicitly state what he's being accused of in general, which is wielding workplace power to exercise sexual deviancy, although it's clearly stated he flirts at work and gets mad if you don't play along with him and that he goes to extremes to get his way. But let's hunt now, in some more simple complexities of his chart. His Lilith is in Scorpio. Lilith is the dark side of someone's nature. Wherever Lilith is, it represents a great part of someone's biggest controversies in life. A man harangues the crowd. By his side, a book and a sword are laying on a table. He is clearly known to be someone that directs a big group of people. However, it says, by his side, metaphorically there are dangerous things in sight of this crowd can see these weapons. It implies that, if these weapons or empowering tools or resources or circumstances were stripped, this person would not be powerful. And this crowd could become the powerful one against him. Ambitious, benevolent, and warm character. Eloquence is a formidable asset which enables to convince one's interlocutors. Careers in education, law, medicine, the military, or the arts are greatly favored. There is a strong probability that one wields some sort of power. There's no denying he might not be ambitious, as it says in his midheaven that he goes to extremes to get positions due to rage or revenge or basically, troubled self-esteem. There's no denying he might very well be a big, jovial guy. He writes children's comedy, after all. It gets a bit deeper at eloquence and convincing. There's no denying that he has a way with words. There's no denying a career in the arts. It says here that he wields power. Just what I was looking for. Let's go a bit deeper and see what we can find. Let's look at his Neptune, which represents what one daydreams about, basically speaking. I won't try to get too technical about this, because I want to keep people who want to know less about astrology and more about Dan on the same page here. This one stood out to me. Hidden behind a door, a man watches a woman who plays with a snake coiled around her arm. That quite clearly states that a man spies on a female. This female, however, is a risk taker. She's not necessarily none the wiser about him being a peeping Tom or a voyeur. She knows, somewhat, and teases this, or has become a bit darkened by it, and now plays with snakes. This means, whoever owns this aspect, which Dan seems to according to this article on what's probably one of the most known astrology websites there is, will spy on a female. However, this woman is not necessarily innocent herself. Bold, sensual, and passionate character. One may become famous in plastic arts. Ignore the plastic arts, these are ancient interpretations, based on lifestyles back then. However, he very well may have created plastic props around the set. One may become famous through some scandalous controversy, a sensational love affair, or some dangerous occupation. Moral standards are questionable and may lead to prison. However, this degree tremendously favors success. So this means, this person will be famous, yes. But, due to dark things. It quite clearly states that one has loose morals that could lead to imprisonment. Instead of imprisonment, he is getting secluded by documentaries such as Quiet on Set, as well as many other surrounding allegations. It seems written in the stars, and therefore, a bit valid. Next is something I've seen, which is the Vertex. His is floating all alone by itself. But the Vertex counters the Ascendant. It's important because it is just as based on specifics like birth time as the Ascendant, but while the Ascendant describes general reputation, the Vertex describes fate. His Vertex clearly states, he'll fall trying to boost a young woman. It emphasizes young woman. When we consider everything else so far about his chart, that there's questionable morals, depravity, wielding power, helping a young woman seems less noble. It seems his biggest downfall, such as the man on this mountain, is young women. But I'll move away from that. I'll point out one more thing, since I'm not exactly trying to prove that Dan is guilty of these allegations and therefore will not explore his birth chart as if until I find something exactly matching these allegations. But one more thing is his Ceres. Ceres is an asteroid, and an asteroid is a rocky non-planet that orbits the Sun. Its energy or existence or location impacts birth charts and people's relationship, physical and sensual states, if the asteroids, particularly Ceres, are present or moving in a certain way during the birth and delivery. His Ceres is in the worst place, which is in Sagittarius, a location where it's said that Ceres is most volatile. His Ceres states, a woman lying on a sofa stretches her hands towards a casket full of jewelry. Outside, a man is trampled by a billy goat. This says to me that he is apathetically hedonistic, while people around him suffer. Greedy and sensual character. One indulges in deprivation and is willing to sacrifice everything to meet one's materialistic and sexual needs. There is a strong probability of ruin. In the chart of males, there may be premature senility or impotence. It says here one has depraved sexual needs. It says he will be impotent. I mention impotence, because I personally think he physically matches the quintessential incel. And in being an incel, he might dabble in darker kinks due to sexual frustration. However, since he has this success and wields power, apparently, he can act out these kinks now, even if it brings about prison as one aspect explained, or loneliness, as another stated, or suffering of others, as this basically states. Well, that's enough for now. I'll just provide an opinion on the clip I showed earlier, and then I'll finish watching the other episodes. So far, it seems everyone wants to blame Dan. And his two female writers want to cry victim and cry sexism. But according to his chart, and their own mouths, they were a part of his sexualization of children, where one woman's sentiments about this was, quote, as seen in the clip at the beginning. And the other female writer said with a smile that a dirty sense of humor was normal, and wrote dirty jokes for these children, for even, as they stated, half a paycheck.